Hello, everyone. I'm doing the lecture for today. And this is a lecture to kind of branch a few weeks. I'm looking at some of the information in week 6, which is social penetration theory, uncertainty avoidance, or uncertainty reduction theory, which also has to do with uncertainty avoidance, and impression management. And then this kind of bridges into week 7, which is our job interview week. And really, what we're trying to get to between as we come to the last third of our term and information, and you're finishing up your readings, we're really trying to think about ourselves in conversation. Remember, this class is business and professional communication, and that really means how are we engaging in conversation in the context of these environments. And that's a really important thing that we want to track so that we can represent ourselves with that is appropriate, effective, and authentic. We want to be relational in these environments, uh, while still we want to be relational at our core, while managing our identities and our privacy, right? So when we talk about all of these things, there's a lot to juggle because as I created this module called Break Room Politics, or Don't Yuck My Yum, we are required to be social. And being social is its own skill. And so there's a lot of different elements that go into this idea of being social. And we want you to show up in a way that is required for you to be social, that is authentic and effective and appropriate. But we also want you to be able to maintain your privacy and manage your identity in a way that you feel comfortable, and not feel like you need to shut down or or build up resentment for these spaces. So that's one of the reasons why I chose social penetration theory, uncertainty reduction theory, and impression management theory, or Goffman's front stage, backstage kind of is blended in there. And then as we think about these conversations when we're actually on the job, these are the things that we are showing up for in our job interviews. We need that social proof that we want access to these spaces and that we belong here, that not only should we have access, choose me, that I belong here. And then once we're there, how do we continue that conversation? And not every workspace gels with us, and that sometimes that takes a while for us to figure out. Some of us are a little more seasoned in our failures and successes, and over time, it takes we have figured out where we work best. And some of us are on the beginning of our journey of figuring that out, which means you're going to have to take some risks and get in there and get on the ride, right? Get on the ride of this workplace adventure. So, let's start with social penetration theory. This is an interpersonal communication foundational theory that is often placed with this idea of how do we self-disclose our identity through dialogue or through conversation. Uh, that's got this word social, right? So within the dyad, meaning between two people in an interaction, we have conversation. I'm going to tell you something. And then through reciprocity, someone is going to answer back to you some information there. And they're going to self disclose sometimes, right? And we build conversation and knowing. We build knowing and social proof and all of these networking kind of things that happen. The way the theory works, besides the fact that this first piece that I'm going to share something and then you're going to share something, we have reciprocity built in. Now, reciprocity is very culturally driven. And in this class, we don't really dive too much into intercultural communication, but I would say everyone who wants to be successful in the world of business should have a communication competency of intercultural communication. This is an essential tool, and you should figure out how to get access to that tool. There are quite a few workshops, and in our communication department, we teach intercultural communication, we teach interpersonal communication, uh, and this is a good place to develop skills like this. And they're embedded in other classes as well. But interpersonal communication or intercultural communication is a good place to go for those skills. Or I teach conflict management and I cover a lot of intercultural communication. Some of you have taken my conflict management class and know these things in there. So that's what I said all that because that was about reciprocity. That reciprocity shows up differently depending on cultural norms and expectations. The more you understand that, the better you're going to be at navigating sales, international business, different bosses or management styles that are actually embedded. You think a management style might be like, oh, what is that person doing? And that person, I can't work with them. But actually, you might be in a cultural clash. And if you can decode the culture, all of a sudden everything gets really smooth and easier to deal with, where really the conflict was just based on that. So that's just a little hack about that. I'm going to be in the world of that we've been working in, where we're trying to remove the fluff and the world of brevity and low context, which is a very specific communication culture. And that's how I'm going to work in when I'm talking about reciprocity in here. But just so you know, there's a whole nother world out there. Okay. So the way this theory works is it has a model to it, and what you're doing is you're creating a map of a conversation or a dialogue. And in the map, the way it works is I have some images here that I'm going to hold up, is it looks like this. In fact, I can fold it back down even more. Is so when you are self-disclosing your social penetration theory and this is a conversation map, you get one of these to track what you are self-disclosing. And the way we're going to label this map is by breadth and depth. So depth is how it's upside down. Depth is the penetration into the layers here, and breadth is how many different, the width. Breadth is the width, how many different topics of conversation. And the way we've divided the layers up into these kind of pie slices is one way to think about it. Each pie slice would be a different topic of conversation. So if I asked you, hey, what's your favorite TV show? And we started talking about all our favorite binge watching or TV shows, that might be its own pie slice. But let's say we talk about our favorite foods where are we thinking of going for our vacation? Or, oh my gosh, now we're going to talk about work and that project we're working on. That's a completely different slice. Or family. Uh, I hope you're understanding how each slice is its own different topic of conversation. And then that would be breadth. So the breadth of our relationship is demonstrated in how many different topics we talk about or know about that I self disclose to you. Uh, and then depth is how much I disclose. And there's three different layers of depth here that we can disclose. Layer one, layer two, and at the very center would be the most intimate depth. Layer one would be low risk. Anything that is really easy to self-disclose, like it doesn't feel like any risk to tell you this information. Now, I think a really good example of this would be for some people, your name, right? If you say, hey, hello, my name is, for some people, my name, answering the question, what's your name, is really low risk, but it's personal. And sometimes self disclosing a name can be a higher risk. And then it wouldn't go in the top layer for that for some people. For some people, it would be low risk. Don't just assume that just because it's low risk for you, that it's low risk for the other person. We want to be kind of in this constant awareness that other people's experiences might be different with self-disclosure. And a topic for you that is low risk may not be same for the other person. In layer two, as we get a little more depth, this is where opinions, attitudes were getting a little more risky. It feels like, ooh, if I say this, I'm feeling more vulnerable. I'm going to be opening up. You're going to have information about me that now has value to it. You have valuable information about me. Definitely, if you can think about if we are in this occupying the same workplace, if I have a manager that I don't like and I don't know you're my coworker and I decide to tell you I don't like the boss. I don't like the boss. I don't like our new schedule they just put out. I don't I'm giving you information that you could use against me. That I don't know if you agree with me or not. And that's why it's a little bit more risky because it's an opinion, it's an attitude that it was risky to share. And usually we are throwing out little teeny tiny self-disclosure moments in conversations to see. And when we know we're taking a risk or we're trying to creak open that door and see, I'm going to be a little bit more hyper aware of your reaction to that opinion. How do you react to it? Uh, and if I see you tense up or you, hmm, hmm, really? Oh, you didn't like this new schedule? What? What about it? Or, oh my gosh, thank goodness someone else said it out loud. Maybe I'll get a relief and an agreement, or will I get a constriction or pushback? Or maybe someone will freeze and ignore it and not even acknowledge that I said it. Whatever it is, the reciprocity that comes back to me taking a risk of self-disclosure is going to really be the moment of whether that relationship is how it's going to move forward. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to lose trust. It doesn't mean that you can't work with that what person or you've lost productivity. You're just getting information about how much self-disclosure you can do with that person. And so, uh, that first little jump into that deeper layer tells you a lot, right? This first layer most people are so afraid to open that door and jump into more depth here that they'll often just stay in the low risk stuff here and they'll never ever jump down into anything deeper. And if they just stay in the outer layer of the onion, oh yeah, that's the nickname for this, the onion, which I was leading up to that, but I dropped the ball on revealing the social penetration theory's nickname is the onion theory, because layers, we all have layers. Ogres have layers. You have layers. I have layers. Donkeys have layers, right? Shrek, when Donkey and Shrek are getting together, they're talking about social penetration theory, which made it very famous as the onion theory. Anyway, so um, if the relationship, if the conversation is staying in the first layer, that's often where small talk gets its bad rap. Like, oh, I hate small talk. It's so exhausting. It's because no one's really is taking any risk and it feels really closed off. And I don't know if I can trust anyone. Um, but if you're hating small talk, take a risk, add an opinion in. Be the first one to jump in, to creak the door open and try to open up the conversation. You might get pushback. It is a risk. You are taking a risk. Someone might look at you a little differently because, you think that? But that is where we start to really build more possibility of connection and that social need, that social skill that we really need to build relationship and all the things that come with that, partnerships, professionality. How do we deal with disagreement? We on with our with all these social media devices that aren't really true connection or true conversation, that we live in these kind of algorithms of echo chambers that make us unprepared for difference. But if we can really exercise conversations where we do take a risk, someone does have a difference opinion, and we know how to lean into that difference with curiosity and wanting to learn and explore different perspectives, then we can dive into really what you need in business relationships, which is problem solving, strategic planning, critical thinking, and collaboration and cooperation, even when we're different, especially when we're different. Okay. So that's kind of the way the onion works. It's got breadth and depth and in dialogue. Now, I folded this over, but the truth is you have your onion and the other person has their onion. And for every relationship, you have another onion and a different map for every single relationship you have. And the more breadth and depth usually indicates the longevity of a relationship, though the longevity of a relationship that has built self-disclosure, trust, and goodwill over long periods of time. So you can have a relationship with someone or a workplace relationship with someone, a colleague that you've known a really long time, and not have a lot of breadth and depth to that relationship. Uh, and that's okay if that's a productive relationship, that's a productive relationship. It doesn't need to be more than that if that's what's working. However, if we are thinking about how we are building teams or how we're building relationships for networking and the social skills, we probably want to develop more more depth and breadth in those relationships. Okay. And we need to develop boundaries as well. So I talk about this a lot in my interpersonal communication class. This is the theory that we use, and we go into a lot of depth with it. If we have a lot of self-disclosure where there's been over long periods of time, because to fill up a conversation map like to this level, where we really have a lot of topics we've gone over. We really have filled it in all the way to the third layer, which is our emotive layer, and where a lot of emotions live. And we have a lot more depth of the things we're self-disclosing. This is a relationship, a much more personal relationship. However, we want to start listening and paying attention to that reciprocity, because sometimes what happens is someone is really good at self-disclosing just enough to get the other person to self-disclose more and ante up more information than the other person. So in this conversation map, we see that A has said a lot more than B. B has a lot less breadth and a lot less depth, and A has more breadth and more depth. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing depending on the context. If this was a therapy relationship, a therapist relationship, this little bit of depth here may have been just what was needed to help build trust. And because of the context of the relationship, this is actually appropriate to get A to open up and B to be the support person to help A. But if these are colleagues, uh, a peer relationship, meaning that they have a solidarity, relationship dimension of solidarity, or there's something is going wrong. This is a warning that A has given too much to B, and B has too much on A. And you can do this. This is something you can do. You can just sketch this out, just get all your distractions away, put your phone in another room. It's really hard to do. Put it in another room, sit quietly, follow your breath, think about a relationship that you might think is problematic. Just draw this out and sketch it out and label the different topics of conversation. What has been self-disclosed? But what do you know about the other person? And it might be a way to think about, how are you regulating boundaries? The way conversation sounds when it's out of balance is, someone might say, "Oh my gosh," they might offer up an opinion. "I really did not like that schedule. That schedule isn't fair. I can't believe they put that out that way, and I have to work that shift again." And the other person B says, "Me too. Me too. Oh, same. I can't believe that. Same." And that's all they say. They just agree with you. Agreeing with you is not self-disclosure. Let's be clear. Don't get me started. Agreement is lovely. It's lovely to be agreed with. It feels great. But it is like adding, if you've ever had a barbecue with the fuel, you throw the fuel on the, it's like it just adds fuel to self-disclosure. And then you're like, oh, good, they agree with me. And then you add another thing. You're gonna add more. Oh yeah, the schedule. Oh, and it makes me feel so angry. And this and oh, you know what else made me upset? This other topic made me upset. That also made you upset? Oh, wow. And maybe, let's see, let's think of it. Oh yeah, since we just talked about this in the break room, our break room examples that I put up was like maybe the Secret Santa or, oh yeah, the Secret Santa, that person brought in a gift that was above the price limit, or that person brought one that obviously wasn't matching, right? Okay, I don't know, whatever it is the complaint is, fill in the blank complaint. The other person's complaint, uh, that they might basically say the exact same thing you said. Oh, yeah, I agree that I can't believe that person's didn't just brought in some cheap thing that was used. Maybe that's what you said. That's what they say. They, instead of saying same, I agree, they just repeat your story. They're just repeating your story. They're not really adding any more breadth or depth or any individuality or authenticity to their self-disclosure. Um, that's a good sign that you might be, um, you might not be getting the self-disclosure piece. I think this is something to be aware of in conversations, and it's not always malicious. Sometimes it is malicious, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes people are shy or not practice. We're we're not very practiced in conversation, especially as we're all captivated by digital devices, and our conversation and sharing public spaces and debate has kind of been shrunk or restricted, that we are out of practice on how to do this. So I don't want to say that everybody that's doing this is um, is necessarily a bad person, right? But I do think it's a good thing to be aware of and to think about your own self-disclosure. Okay. I talked a lot about social penetration theory, and there were three theories I wanted to talk about, but this is a really big one. And I think it goes well with the other two. The other two I don't won't take as long as this one, but if you have any questions about this, I'd love to hear you talk about it in your meetings or in your reports that you're doing so that I can hear how you are understanding this theory and how it works. Now, the next one is uncertainty reduction theory. Now, we talked about risk in social penetration theory, and everyone is different in how they're experiencing risk and uncertainty. And if we define uncertainty, uncertainty is the unknown. It's what's ambiguous. And when we're dealing with the unknown or what is ambiguous, it's this feeling as we step into things that there's an unpredictable element to everything. It's actually to everything. Life is so unpredictable that we have a human need to create constraints and schedules and tasks and lists, and we crave routine and rituals and calendars and schedules and all sorts of things to deal with this soup of unpredictability, right? And some people have a little bit better, I don't know if better is the right word, tolerance. Some people have more tolerance to sit in uncertainty than other people. And there's lots of reasons why. I bet we have some people in this class who've taken some psychology classes who could dive into all the why reasons. It has a lot to do with our past experiences, our cultural norms. It has to do with our current situations that we're in. the emotional labor, financial situations, food or housing insecurities. All of these things are taxing our our tolerance to put up with uncertainty in this moment. And so we are grasping for predictability and schedules. So those what strategies you're using to try and deal with this and how we demand of others or how what do we demand from our workplaces to cooperate with our intolerance for uncertainty so we can reduce it. Um, so when we think about how we're using this, we can think about what's happening in when you're on the job. When you're actually on the job, your workplace has lots of strategies to deal with uncertainty reduction, reducing uncertainty. One is when you're hired, you might have a 6-month probation. Okay, we read all your recommendations. You had a great job interview. We want to hire you in this job, but we're still not sure. And until we've actually worked with you over a long period of time and we've seen you under the stress of this job, we're not going to really hire you. We're going to put you under a 6-month probation. And anytime during the 6-month probation, we can let you go, right? So when we think about those things, that would be part of this way that your job, your organization might be trying to reduce uncertainty, the unknown. Who are you really, right? Uh, and so they can't predict how you're going to be on the job, so they'll put something like that in place. Another thing, I bet you could think of some things that they might do to reduce uncertainty on the job, but it's also thinking about how we occupy shared spaces. So they might say, because we want to make sure everyone knows how to work well together and we want to make sure the week is productive, we're going to have a morning huddle every Monday morning. Morning huddles. And everyone's going to go around and say what is on their list for the week. What are you going to be doing? And then we might have you check in periodically. Now, this has sometimes management, if you have a manager or a boss or an organization that has really high uncertainty avoidance culture, like, oh my gosh, I have all these workers and I need my report to show that we worked hard and they want to reduce uncertainty of low productivity, they might move into over managing their team, right? They might choose, oh my gosh, everybody, I have some people working at home. I have some people working in the office and I don't know what's going on here and there. And there's no predictability to what's going on. I'm going to make sure I have a meeting every single morning, not just Monday morning. I want a meeting every morning. And I want to report uh, at the end of every single day. And I want a report every Friday at 5 p.m. Like they might create so many constraints because of they're trying to reduce the uncertainty of that it'll backfire and the checking in and the over management strategy often becomes its own worst enemy, as you can kind of hear as I'm saying. And I think I had an example for that, but I can't remember what it is right now. But I bet you've had that experience yourself. You probably have your own example. Okay. I think when I put that up there, just to finish up on uncertainty reduction theory, you need to develop your own ability to sit in uncertainty. It's a skill and you need to exercise it. And the way you exercise it is by trying it with very small things, like leaving your phone in another room and not checking your text messages, not checking the news, not checking social media for s- solid periods of time. So if you're someone, depending on whatever your habit is, stretch it out even more. You know, can you stretch it? Can you double the time? So if you're someone who checks it every 30 minutes, can you check it every hour? And then can you check it every 2 hours? And then can you check it every 3 hours? That kind of thing. Like uh, stretch it, and it will create you'll feel the feeling of uncertainty, of anxiety, or bubble up. And that feeling, you need to just kind of sit with it. It's kind of like riding a wave. And then it'll, as you get used to it, you'll settle down. And you want to try and do it with something that is low stakes for you. Try and find something where you will feel the pinch of that. It's an exercise, right, of discipline. You want to feel it, but it's low stakes. And then when you're actually on the job or the stakes are higher, you've exercised sitting in the discomfort of uncertainty for a much higher stakes situation. So I challenge you to find something and find a way to practice this skill. It is a skill. Okay. Yay. Here's the last theory I'm going to talk about in this video, which is impression management. I had to drink some water. Lots of talking today. So, with impression management, that is this idea of performance, that our identities are a type of performance, meaning we, when we are presenting ourselves in spaces, and this can be in our home with our families or with romantic partners, and on the job or in a job interview, we present ourselves. Each one of these is considered a different play or a different TV show, right? We're on a different set. So all of impression management kind of uses the language of theater or performance to an analogic in a metaphorical way to talk about our identities, even though we're in real life. So we'll use Shakespeare's line, all the world's a stage and the men and women are merely players. So if all the world is a stage, impression management says that whatever set you're on, you have a part to play. In your family, you have a part to play. You have a role and it has a script. You have lines that make up that role, and you have tasks. You have props. Here I am. I'm the professor of this class. I am in my home office here. I have my props. I consider my coffee cup at my desk one of my props. I have my pencil and I have my folder of notes here and my microphone. All these props are part of my performance as professor of the class. And am performing professor according to impression management. And I get ready and I push play here and I'm recording myself, right? We do this when we enter into rooms. This is feels very theatrical because I'm going to put it on YouTube and here, even though, and record it. But impression management, it says when you walk into a room, you're doing this. When you go to work and you clock in on your job, or you sit at your desk and you open Teams or you open your email, you are performing. So that means that there are different things that you have to think about in making an impression and managing your identity. One is your mannerisms. Your mannerisms make up your gestures, right? We have the way that you move your body, your posture, and your language, your the words that you choose to use, the jargon that is lines you up, converges language that converges you, that you are part of the group. So if you know the acronyms and codes and special vocabulary that goes with your job, that is the convergence that you belong in this group. And if you use that special jargon with that job, but then you go home and you don't use it, that would be a great example of how you performed that part for your job and then you went home. One thing I do is I wear certain clothes when I'm teaching, and then I have certain other clothes that I wear when I'm not teaching. Or when I go to my fitness club, I have a wardrobe for fitness. And personally, I make that choice because I don't want my job. I mean, being a teacher feels like it creeps into every aspect of my life, especially since I work from home quite a bit. And if you have a job where you work at home, del how do you divide your job from your life? And a lot of people who work from home have really struggle with that division of, oh my gosh, my job is my life and my life is my job. So I code out and in from my clothes this way so that I can try and keep that separate. And that's one thing that some people do to keep track of which role they're in. Some people don't, but some people do. Uh, the second way, so that's language, right? Or that so that there's language, there's mannerisms, the way we talk, and then there's clothing and what we're wearing, and it's also like jewelry, hairstyles, anything, glasses. I mentioned props, setting, things like that. All of these things make up that kind of performance piece of impression management. And I think the last one uh, is people, is the social piece of our impression management. So, you know, you're not on stage alone. It's not a solo act in business. You have to have colleagues, customers, financiers, and all sorts of things that uh, make up your business. There's other people in business. That's the social piece of it. So, who are the other people in your neighborhood? And that makes an impression on you. So, who you do business with, who you hang out with, who do you take photos with, who is on your social media, who do you follow, whose parties do you go to, whose wedding did you attend? All that is part Impression management says that is interlinked with your identity. And if you are in business with someone who has irreputable has a bad reputation or is known for being corrupt or is has I don't know what is the word is escaping me, but can you help me? Like disreputable reputation. I don't know if I'm saying it right. And you hang out with that person or have been known to hang out with them, it's a contagion. It rubs out off on you. And so impression management says people also make up your identity. Your social network is also your social worth. So this is why parents are always so concerned with their kids with who are you hanging out with or why are you hanging out with that person, right? They want you to because they know that who you hang out with, especially when you're younger, they feel like they have responsibility for a family identity. And when you are hired into an organization, here we go. This is a really important part. When you are hired by a organization, you want to work for Nike, you want to work for Netflix, you want to work for whatever whatever is your dream job that you want to get hired into, they will comb the internet. They will look for your digital footprint to see if your identity, your matches and lines up with their identity. And if there is anything that does not match up, they will say, actually, that identity doesn't match up with our identity, and we do not want to have you as part of our organization. And there is an expectation when you join the team that you will be part of the team and you will be a positive force, not just for you coming into this job and getting your paycheck and going home, but you will be a positive force to build this organization's reputation even when you're not on the clock. So that's a really important piece. And it's often why some organizations or corporations have a lot of swag. Like we want you to wear our jacket, or everyone's going to get a hat or a t-shirt. Like there's a lot of branding swag that is given out a lot for teams or a company picnic, and we're going to bring your family in. That's the organization creating its own impression management because they say you have a responsibility to this organization, not just to work here and go home with a paycheck, but now to be part of it. That's a lot. Wow. Okay. So this was a little bit longer lecture, but it's really to span a couple of weeks and think about what does it really mean when we say office politics and break room politics and this idea of how do you manage your identity and boundaries and privacy? And how do you get it? How do you do all that when you're trying to get a job and keep a job? Thanks, everybody. I'm really enjoying your work this term and keep up the good job.